Hey, B-Siders, welcome to a new episode of the Living on the B-Side podcast, where it's all about music, people, and their connected stories to share and showcase the power of music. And today I am joined by Jenn Abbatiello. I hope I said that right, with a bit of an Italian accent in there. Welcome, Jenn. Thanks so
Beautifully
much for
said.
joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bridget. I'm so excited to be here and to talk about music and how it's influenced my life and my business. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And this is going to be a good one for parents out there. I just want to throw that out there straight away. So if you're a parent of kiddos from like 0 to 12, then keep listening, because I'm sure we'll have some juicy music kind of advice for you around being a better parent. And that's really what Jenn does. She's a parent coach. And as I said, she helps sort of age-wise, 0 or newborns to about 12 years old. And it's focused on the parent. And from what I understand, and I'm sure Jenn will share a little bit more in a second about that, a little bit about breaking old patterns and triggers that we might have from our own upbringing and trying to, I wouldn't say do better, because every parent does their best, but be more conscious around what triggers us and how we can make or create a better relationship with our kids. So I think that's what I took away from talking to Jenn and reading up about her. But please, Jenn, just quickly, is that right? Have I sort of got that right?
100%. If we decide to be a parent, we don't enter parenthood with a blank slate, right? We have a baggage, we have history, we have a story.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, and we'll talk more about it, that comes reflecting back at us
Mm-hmm.
in our children.
Yes, yes. And obviously this is kind of a music podcast, so we'll see how music can help parents themselves and also with their kids. So we're going to throw in hopefully a lot of tips and ideas, and maybe even a few sort of examples as well, how parents can use music a lot more to help as a bit of guidance and as a bit of a support friend as well. Now, first off, I would love to start off with your own story, why you do what you do, and did music have some form of part in that? And if so, when and how did that work?
Yeah, I think, outwardly, I seemed to have the idyllic life. I was successful in my career. We had the privilege of being able to travel the world. We had a beautiful family. But on the inside, I was a mess. I was longing and desiring to get my child's behavior to stop. The tantrums would send me into this visceral state of either wanting to fight, which is yelling and make it stop, or wanting to run away and never come back. And it was only by learning to understand why my body was going into this state, like I was being, chased by a lion, that I was able to remove those blinders, see my child for who they truly were, and heal. And music was a part of that journey, because music is so emotive and so cathartic and allows us to either deepen in the emotion that we're feeling, or if we need to shift, we can also use music to support us in shifting how we're feeling.
Mm-hmm. And I think I feel with kids that probably is a big one, because kids are emotional beings. They haven't learned the adult way yet, from what I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. So I think
Yeah,
music is a really great way to communicate, isn't it?
yeah, if you think when you said, like, they're emotional beings, and they're living in their middle brain, which is all feelings, right? When we think about our prefrontal cortex, where we have like the rational, problem solving, thinking brain, that doesn't start coming online till age 7 and isn't fully developed to age 25. And so appealing to their emotions and their middle brain and helping them make sense of that is where we need to be. But sometimes as adults, that's uncomfortable for us, because most of us did not grow up learning to sit in those emotions and discomfort. We learned how to avoid and stuff down and cope. And so when I think about music, I think we talked on our first call about, when I'm feeling sad and I feel like I want to release some tears, music for me, and I remember I'm Canadian, Sarah McLachlan, right? Sarah McLachlan and her beautiful music allows me to shed those tears. And sometimes you just need to shed them instead of fighting them back.
Mm. Yes, yes. Yeah, totally agree. And thankfully, I do feel that we're in a stage of society where that's a little bit more acceptable, a little bit more understood. That
Mm-hmm.
as adults we have to go into those emotions and then release them and walk past them, not past them, but walk through them and release them. So why shouldn't that work as a parent with your child? You know, that could be maybe the turning point in the relationship. Is that how you kind of can
Yeah,
see
at
it
the end of the
sometimes?
day, to be able to parent with empathy and kindness and love and compassion, we need to be able to regulate our own emotions so we can co-regulate with our kids. And so if we can't do that for ourselves, you can't teach it. And so using music as a way to support yourself, either to prepare for the time you're going to meet your child, or even when your child is with you get to choose what music you put on and get through your ears. And there is science that shows like a connection between our ears, our vagus nerve, and our nervous system. And so it's so powerful and stimulating either the parasympathetic or the sympathetic, depending whether we want to lower our heart rate and get to calm, or whether we need to like escalate and get more energy.
Mm, beautiful. Now I have a question that I'm curious to hear your answer to is, from what you do with parents, who do you think struggles more with their emotions? Is it the dad or the mum?
That's a
Like,
really beautiful question. Um, I feel from a cultural and societal perspective, depending where you live, a lot of times there's more pressure on men to not show certain emotions like sadness, right? Whereas
mm-hmm,
it's okay for a girl or female to be sad and to cry,
mm-hmm,
right? How many boys may have grown up and said, "Stop crying, boys don't cry."
mm-hmm,
Right. So I think sometimes from my experience, especially with, I work with a lot of couples who come to our coaching calls, husband and wife. And
mm-hmm,
a lot of times it's the dads who have a harder time with the big feelings. And they're like, oh, my wife is so much better at nurturing and soothing the child. Because a lot of times girls, from a societal perspective and culturally, they were more coddled, if you will, and supported emotionally versus boys were not.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I sort of, I kind of thought you might say that, which I find in a way sad because men are human beings with feelings too. And I don't see a problem if if a male shows his emotions. This is a little bit of an off-topic example, but we were at our vet's once, and this couple came out the door, and they obviously just lost their pet. And what made me feel a bit, I know this sounds a bit weird, but made me feel fuzzy was the fact that he was literally bawling his eyes out in front of everybody because he lost, obviously, I think it was a dog. So he must have lost his best buddy. And his wife literally had to say to him, "Hon, go outside, sit in the car. Don't worry about it. Just release it and let it go." And I just sat there and I thought, wow, this dude does not give a damn who's around him. He just lost his best friend and he shows it. Good for you. I felt
Yeah.
proud of him in that moment. I thought, that's amazing. And he was a big, big, strong bloke, like
Yeah.
the type of bloke you probably not expect to be like that, or society doesn't expect them to be like that.
Mhm.
So that
And that's
was,
why I do feel like I'm raising boys, right? I have two boys, and
oh, okay.
we talk a lot about
Yeah.
girl power and empowering the women, but I also feel as a mother of boys, it's also my role to ensure that they're able to feel their feelings, that they view the equality, because let's be honest, and there's still a lot more men in leadership and executive roles. And so if we don't change their mindset, it's really hard to shift that equality. It's got to be on both ends, right? How do we
Mm,
raise girls, but also how do we raise boys?
that's such an important point. Yes. Yes. Because like you said, if we can get more men who are in a position of power, which I don't like that word anyway, but who are in a position of power to understand and yeah, tap into that more, I think change would probably be easier.
Hmm.
So yes, kudos to you for doing that. That's amazing. So thank you for raising your boys that way. That's
Change
amazing.
the world one family, one child at a time.
That's it. That's it. Um, Now we know a little bit what you do and obviously how music can kind of influence that in a certain way, but for you personally, obviously you're a music lover, otherwise you wouldn't be on this podcast. But how was music in your life growing up? What sort of influence had it when you were growing up into adulthood?
Yeah, I think it played a stronger role in my teenage years, more so in my younger years. In my younger years, my parents didn't listen to music much. We didn't bring music into the home. But in the teenage years, right, you're have more control, if you will, on what you're exposed to and what you see. And so I had a good friend in high school who introduced me to Blue Rodeo. And I don't know if you're familiar with Blue Rodeo. Again, it was a small Canadian band back then. And we just loved them. And we would go travel to see them everywhere. And I remember this one moment where we're in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is now a much more popular place. By the time it wasn't. And it was this small bar with like just a handful of people, and we got to see them and talk to them afterwards. And so Blue Rodeo, if I think back to my early teenage years, and even till now, they've played a fundamental role in shaping who I am, and I still turn back to many of their early music
Mm.
times in
So
my life.
would you say they were like the soundtrack of your teenage years?
Yes, they probably were.
And that's beautiful that you've actually even had the chance to kind of hang with them as well and have that personal connection, like not just the music, but them as well. So that I think not many people get to experience that. So yeah,
Yeah, it
really
was pretty cool. So like I said,
special.
they were lesser known then, and so it was a really small venue, and so we had that opportunity that I was like, oh wow, that was so exciting to me because
Mm.
I have that opportunity today.
So what would you say is your favorite song by them?
Got hands down lost together. I think
Mhm.
that one always struck me. And one of the times that I did go see them, I'm from Montreal, Quebec, in Canada. They were playing at this outdoor venue up north, which was just like an hour away. And so my girlfriend and I got in the car, and it was this outdoor concert. And I just remember being like on the blanket on the grass, lying underneath the stars, and their song was so appropriate for like that environment. And so that's the song that I come back to many, many times, especially as you can imagine, a lot of kids feel lost in the teenage years, like not really having a strong sense of self. And so even the title, like Lost Together,
Mhm.
really resonated with that time in my life and many other times in my life as well, let's be honest.
Yes. I did have a sneak sort of listen to them because obviously I admit I've never of them before. And yeah, it really struck me as a very cool song. And I can imagine as a teenager that kind of music really helped you kind of go through the teenage years. So yes, I like it. So thanks for
Yeah,
introducing
and I
me
think
to them.
a lot of people used to classify them as country, and I was like,
Okay.
oh, I kind of view it more as soft rock, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, obviously I just listened to that one song, but it didn't strike me as country. But
Hmm.
that's just
Me
me. So
neither.
but that's, I don't know. That's all good. Just the song was great. I enjoyed it. It was really kind of mellow and lovely and
Yeah, I'm
chill.
glad you enjoyed it, and maybe you'll
Mm.
be intrigued to listen to a few more of their songs.
You never know. I might hop on YouTube and do that. Well, that's great. So, do you hope that your two sons might have a similar experience when they sort of hit the teenage years, that they're going to have maybe a certain artist or a certain genre of music that can help them process those really emotional up and down
But
years
they
of their
have it
life?
now,
Oh,
right? They have it
really?
now, right?
Okay.
So I feel like both my boys will listen to different types of music. For example, my 10-year-old, he needs a lot more. He's an introvert, and he notices that he needs a lot more quiet time, whereas his younger brother always wants to be in his face. And so sometimes he's like, Mom, I just want to go to my room. Can you like keep Adam away? And I'm totally respectful of that, because I'm in awe that he notices that he needs that space at such a young age, because I never think I knew that. And he goes to his room and he listens to classical music.
Oh, wow.
Right? He listens to classical music either lying on his bed or while he's drawing, and that's really calming for him.
Wow. 10. That's
And
that's incredible. I mean, I remember back when I was 10, I had no idea I needed that.
right? Nor do I. I think I waited until probably my 20s, if not.
I mean, for me, I guess for me, it was just something I just automatically did. I mean, I was an only child, so I had no siblings that would bother me to start off with,
Yeah.
but I just did it. Not consciously, I just did it. But I think that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, and so they're exposed to music a lot more. Like we always have music
Mhm.
playing in our home. My husband is a huge fan of the band Rush. Like we have AC/DC like playing like in the house. Like the boys love Mumford and Sons, and so I find they're always. And we have an Alexa for good or for bad. And so they're often saying, Alexa, play blah, 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 whatever the song is. Um, and sometimes there are songs I'd rather not listen to. Like there's one song, I don't even know the artist, but it's called Gummy Bear.
Okay.
I don't know the artist, but I remember, and this is a story around using music to help shift emotions. So if you
Mhm.
can imagine young kids, when they're in school all day, most of the times they're being their best selves, right? They're stuffing all those feelings down. They're trying to listen to whatever the teacher's saying. And so they sometimes come home needing to empty that backpack. And I love playing music to help support that. And so there was one day where my younger son, who's now 8, came home and he was just a little grumpy. And I'm like, what song do you want to play to help? And in school, I think in gym class, they listened to this Gummy Bear song. So we put on Gummy Bear, and here he is dancing like the Gummy Bear, Gummy Bear. I'm not awful, I'll stop there. But it helped him shift, right?
Mm.
When you think about emotions, there's the word motion in there,
Mm.
the word movement. So not only moving our body, but moving and shifting how we're feeling.
Mm. Yes. That's such a good way of putting it. Yes, it might make it a little bit less frightening because I often feel that, I mean, you're an introvert like myself, so we are used to the intense emotions that come up and we go through. But for others, it might be a little bit difficult and strange. And just knowing that's just a part of being human, and there's nothing wrong with that. And by using music to just do it, it might make it a little bit less frightening. So,
Yeah, and I always say all emotions are neutral,
yes.
even anger, right? Even anger that sometimes we're scared of. It's what we've associated with the behavior that people do when they're feeling that way. So yeah, some people when they're angry, they get aggressive, but the actual feeling of anger is
Hmm.
neutral. Learn how to support ourselves when we're in that state.
Mm. Yes, and I suppose as a parent, that I think frustration can probably bubble up pretty quickly. Probably not with the child, but with yourself more than anything, of not being able to handle that situation as you want it. So, and then putting like this negative attachment to it is probably not beneficial, is it?
No, and it's the idea, like I was saying before, that our kids are mirrors. So oftentimes when we see them getting angry or hitting or throwing, we have these stories that have been programmed into our nervous system and whether that's okay or not. And so maybe growing up, we were told or punished for doing that, or we weren't allowed to feel. And so when we witness it in someone else, that's where that visceral response comes in, because we may not have conscious memories, but our body remembers. And so how our nervous system reacts is a
Hmm.
cue to what is going on and how
Yeah,
do we support ourselves.
yeah. And your example of to shift your energy and your emotions just by playing a song and having a dance or maybe having a cry. or
Yeah.
go for a workout if you're angry is such an easy way to do it,
Mm.
that anyone can do. So,
Yeah, and I'm a runner, so if you think about, like what
mhm.
music you listen to motivate you to run and the different tempos when you want to be able to run faster or slower, it's so supportive, right? If you're not gonna listen to my example, Sarah McLachlan, while you're going for a run, unless you're like strolling, right?
Yeah, true. Yep.
So it's the same idea.
Hmm. Now, I would love to hear a few sort of ideas and tips for parents who might be struggling right now with their kids, and um, how they maybe can use music apart from obviously what you just shared with your 8-year-old son about putting a song on after school. Is there anything else that parents could do that's without having to go through like your program, or just to start
Sure.
them to think a little bit more
Yeah.
about what they can change and how music can maybe play a little bit more of a bigger part in that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, we need to put our own oxygen mask on first, right? When
Mhm.
you think about you're on the plane, they tell you like if you have, a young child, put your own oxygen mask on first, because otherwise you're no use to your
Yes.
child. You can't help anyone else.
Mhm.
And so the idea as a parent of putting on our own oxygen mask on first, think about how you're supporting yourself out of the moment. We become a parent, but we're still a human and we still have needs. And how we get those needs met might look different based on the time, resources, and support we have. But it's really important to support ourselves out of the moment. So when we're in a challenging moments with our child, we're better equipped, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. And
Mhm.
so what might that look like? So like I said, maybe if you notice doing body scans of noticing what's going on in my body. What do I need right now? How am
Mhm.
I feeling? It's the idea of when we name it to tame it. That's the work of Daniel Siegel, name it to tame it. When you
Mhm.
name what you're feeling, the intensity lowers. And then you can decide, do I want to stay here and like
Mhm.
work through this and choose a song to support you? Like I said, when maybe with sadness, it's Sarah McLachlan. Figure out what works for you when you're in that moment. Or this is not the time, like you need to move forward. You need to shift. What song and energy
Mhm.
will support you to shift?
Mhm.
Another song to think about. And again, people need to find music is so personal, right? What resonates with them. But if I think about for me to shift, full confession, I used to watch Grey's Anatomy and I think about, Taylor Swift and Shake It Off. Cause I think that was a song that they used to play like at the end of the day, like can't even think of the
Yeah.
Meredith, whoever, whatever. But it was Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. And if you think about it, you're just shaking off whatever is going on so that when you reconnect with your kids, you're better prepared to deal with what might be going on.
Mm. Yeah. And that I think just that in itself can make a big change. If you can shift your energy and shift your emotion, that is probably a big chunk of helping you already, isn't it?
Huge, right? I just had a call with a client who was saying, like, Jen, I noticed like I'm calmer this week, and my child is calmer too, because that's the
Mm.
idea of neuroception, right? If you're in a room with someone really angry, like that might send you cues that it's not safe. Versus if you're calm and relaxed, you're interpreting that as safe, nurturing, loving. And so when we're calmer, that that energy, this is not the woo-woo energy, but it's scientifically based, that energy is contagious. So are you spreading your calm or are you
Mhm.
spreading your chaos?
Yes, very good point. Yes, and I think if everyone who's joined us today thinks back, it can even be an example of not with children. My thinking was just going when you said energy is contagious. Just think about when you went to a concert
Yeah.
and people start standing up and they start dancing. Well, I can't sit. Generally, I need to get up and at least do something because it's contagious. That energy is contagious. It's happy energy. So,
I love that visual. And you're right that this part of putting our own oxygen mask on is relevant in parenting, but it's relevant in life, right?
mm,
That's part of humanity, that
mhm,
we need this self-care is not selfish, right? We need to care for ourselves and we need to notice and be
Mm,
aware of how we're feeling and the impact it has
mm.
on our and others.
Yes, so true, so true. Mm. That's an interesting point we probably could discuss on its own for another half an hour or so.
I know. I feel like I can talk to you forever on this topic.
But energy is so, so important, and I think that's where music can be such a good friend to help us recognize, sit with, and then shift
Mhm.
through that. So that's definitely a great way. And I suppose I'll be upfront here. I don't have kids, so I'm not a parent. I was a cat parent until not so long ago, so that were my babies. But I guess when you have kids and you grow up, you automatically have music on anyway, because if you're listening to cartoons or there might be those educational kind of programs you probably watch, music is always a part of that. I mean, I remember from my growing up, music was always there when I watched a cartoon and help you with your development kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's not something new that needs to be introduced. It's already there. Just how do you harvest that a little bit more?
Yeah, and if you listen to kids' music, it's usually pretty upbeat, right? Like there's
Yes.
always this happy undertone to it, and there's a reason for that, right? That
Hmm.
helps lift their energy.
Hmm.
But I think there's also value in introducing different genres to our kids, and encouraging them to gravitate towards what resonates with them.
So what's your take on because obviously our kids are not always happy. They do have their own struggles, their own sadness. Um, like you just said, most of this education music is upbeat and happy, but do you see the benefit if there would be something that would explain or walk kiddos through if you feel sad and listening to sad songs is totally okay? Just to make them aware that feeling like that, you don't have to feel guilty about it or something?
Yeah, 100%. And that's where it starts with us being okay with those feelings. Because if we
Mm-hmm.
get uncomfortable with them being sad and we start making up these stories that they're depressed, they're always going to struggle, they're not going to be resilient, blah, blah, blah. Like we can associate so many stories. If we notice those and are able to shift that they're not true, then we can support our child in that sadness,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how you develop resiliency, not
Mm-hmm.
by stuffing it down,
Mm-hmm.
right? By learning that you can sit in that sadness and that muck and you can get through.
Mm.
And you can look back and you're like, oh yeah, that was a rough moment. And I got through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I helped my kid get through it and we're both
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
Great.
I hear a lot that my child doesn't persevere, like when he's trying something new, he gets frustrated so quickly and he gives up. That is a muscle that needs to be developed to get
Mm-hmm.
okay in that, uncomfortableness, because it's uncomfortable learning something new. Like I started skiing later in life,
Mm-hmm.
and man, was it messy and falling all the time and discouraging. But it's getting back up and keep trying if it's important to you.
Yeah. I've been skiing since I was little and I went back after a few years break and I still fell flat on my bum. But you just get up. You just have to,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're not getting down to
Yeah.
the end bit, don't you? So
Like, are you gonna stay on the hill and like just cry and not make it down?
yes. Yeah. Yeah. That just reminds me of a funny, on a side note, one of my friend who was with me, she'd never skied before and she used to learn on like a dry slope. That
Yeah.
was the first time on. And she went off the slope into the deep snow and all he saw was a little hat. That's just a funny memory that popped up on a side note. Anyway. um, Now here's a question for you, and you might want to answer it from your parenting coach angle or from your personal angle. That's absolutely fine, whichever way you wish. But what do you think, or what is your take on the power of music?
Yeah, like I feel like I'm going to be repetitive here, but the power of music is to help us get in tune and make sense of what's going on in our world
Mm-hmm.
and work through that, and also enable us to shift, right? And as I keep
Mm-hmm.
using the word shift like a broken record, no pun intended. That is intended. But music is powerful to bring back memories, to like think about moments where you asked me about Blue Rodeo, and I'm sure you have moments for yourself where you think about some songs and it brings you back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And those memories could be positive, happy, it could be sad,
Yeah.
and it helps you work through
Mm-hmm.
those
Yes.
versus
Yes.
getting stuck.
Mm. Big one. Yeah. Nice. I love that. I love that that take that you have. And I agree with you. It's such a powerful way of shifting your energy and yourself and move you forward as well. So thank you. That
Mhm.
was great. Um and you already shared your favorite song and the wonderful story behind it. And I do wish everyone would have something similar when they're growing up, because that's not just the music, but it's also the moments and memories you create with your friends,
Mhm.
probably with your family too, because maybe sometimes your parents didn't want you to go to a concert and then you had, a big blow up about it. Yeah, it's all these kind of things that make it kind of special. Now, if we move into the here and now, and you would have to pick a song that kind of describes where you are currently with your business and or life. And if you share that song, can you also share the why for us, please?
Yeah. Like I said, I like different genres of music. And if I were to describe where I am at now, both in my life and my business, I would have to say Unstoppable by Sia. And the why is because as we make sense of our world, whether that be our past and our present, we're able to show up authentically. And when we show up authentically and believe that we don't have to be what someone else expects us to be, we are unstoppable, right? Self-doubt sets in when we aren't sure who we are. And so
Mm.
Unstoppable for me is a song that makes me know that I am living a life that is true to who I am. And with that power, I'm unstoppable.
Wow. Okay, that's it, guys. Bye.
You
that's
unstoppable.
that's it. Let's go. Yes, that's a really cool song, and I love your why behind it as well. And hopefully, people will start to think that we all are unstoppable in our own way, and everyone's journey is different, and
I love
comparison
how you
is a killer.
in
So,
our own way because someone else's definition of success and happiness is
hmm
not your definition of success and happiness. And this is a discipline that I've had in my life of stop looking outward and look inward.
hmm yes, and you can do that in silence because silence is music as well. You don't
Mm-hmm.
always need something there. Listen to your inner voice, which is super important too, and especially in this noisy, chaotic world we live in at the moment. I don't know if you agree, but if we could just turn the volume down on the outside world and turn the volume up on ourselves, I think change would happen probably a bit quicker and in a good way.
I 100% agree with that sentiment.
Great. Now, before we wrap this up, any final thoughts on what you want to tell parents, music related, not music related? Well, I'll leave the last final words up to you. And
Yeah, I hope that people are taking away from this that music is powerful, right? It has this ability to take us to different moments in our lives. And if we allow to be present for that journey and recognize what's going on in our body, it has an ability to heal and also has the ability to shift. And so it's not talked about a lot in parenting, but it's beautiful in life, but even in parenting and supporting ourselves to deal with any challenge that comes our way.
perfect. Yep. I hope that inspired a lot of parents and non-parents to dive into the energy shifting a little bit more, especially for parents. It probably might be a way they've not thought of before. So thank you for sharing everything you have today, Jen. I appreciate you coming on, and
Yeah, and
shining
I'd
a bit of
love
light and courage and an encouragement to hopefully a lot of parents out there who might be struggling right now. So,
Yeah, and I'd love if, if they'd be willing to either on Instagram at Your Transform Family or email me, like, what is your song? What is your song that helps you in moments that you're having a hard time? And maybe what is one that helps you shift? I'd love to know. I'd love to compile a playlist of what are these songs that, we can all learn and inspire from each other, maybe introduce new music that could support
yes,
us
that's
in
a
our
great
life.
idea. So you can do that either on Jen's social media channels, which will be in the episode description. So go and check her out. Or you can obviously pop it on any of mine and then I will share them with Jen and we'll go from there. So hopefully we get a few good songs that
Yeah, I'd love to see what comes back.
exactly. That'd be really interesting. So get on to it, guys. Let us know your songs that help you shift when you have a moment as a parent. That'd be really cool to know. Right, so we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, B-Siders, for tuning in again. And I always appreciate your time, of course. And as I always say, I'll be back in your earbuds again very soon with a brand new episode of my podcast. Until then, you guys keep on dancing and keep on rocking. And I'll talk to you very, very soon. Bye.
Thanks for having me.